In a world ruled by perception and power, most people unknowingly choose to be victims of life instead of masters of it. They wait, hope, and beg, while true leaders shape reality with ruthless clarity. This video will expose the silent mistakes that keep you weak and the iron mindset required to rise above mediocrity. If you're tired of being overlooked, underestimated, or used, keep watching. The shift begins now. So the fundamental difference between a leader and a victim is not their circumstances, but how they interpret and respond to the world around them. Most people are not truly weak. They are trained to think weak. They are conditioned to interpret reality as something that happens to them, not something they can shape. This is where the virus of victimhood takes root in perception. It is not oppression, poverty, or betrayal that truly enslaves people. It is the belief that they are powerless to do anything about it. A victim looks at misfortune and says, "Why me?" A leader looks at the same misfortune and says, "How can I use this?" The masses are governed not by facts, by how they perceive those facts. A man loses his job. He thinks the system is broken. A woman is betrayed. She thinks the world is cruel. These are not truths. They are lenses, and the lens you wear shapes the life you live. Leaders understand that power begins in the mind. They don't see the world as fair or unfair. They see it as moldable. Clay to be shaped, not a wall to be feared. Victims wait for the right moment. They wait for others to change. They wait for justice, fairness, or external intervention. And in that waiting, they decay. Leaders don't wait, they move. Not because the time is perfect, but because time itself is irrelevant to the one who understands control. A victim will react to the insult, the loss, the setback. He will raise his voice, defend his pride, blame the world. But all of this noise is a mask, a performance. Beneath it lies helplessness. To react is to surrender your emotional center to the actions of others. A leader does not do this. He observes, processes, and decides. He understands that perception is leverage. If others believe you are strong, you are. If others believe you are fragile, they will break you. Therefore, the leader controls how he is perceived, even if it means disguising weakness or concealing strength. The victim, on the other hand, reveals everything: his pain, his fear, his anger. He becomes predictable, and what is predictable is easy to dominate. In every environment, be it a palace, boardroom, or a street corner, there are those who shape and those who obey. The victim obeys silently, hoping that being agreeable or virtuous will buy him security. The leader does not seek permission. He creates influence by understanding what others want to see, and then becoming that illusion while executing his true intent in the background. This is the power of perception. To appear weak when you are ready to strike, to appear generous when you are simply strategic, to appear loyal when you are merely buying time. Leadership is not granted by a title, it is seized by presence. It is asserted in silence, in posture, timing. Victims lack this presence because their identity is wrapped in need. They need to be accepted, seen, validated. Leaders, in contrast, understand that power is never about being liked. It is about being respected. And respect is born not from being nice, but from being necessary or dangerous. This is why perception is everything. If you are seen as valuable, you are protected. If you are seen as dangerous, you are avoided. But if you are seen as weak, you are ignored or exploited. And yet most people walk through life begging to be seen while radiating insecurity. Their posture, their tone, their eyes, they scream victimhood, even when they smile. The leader never allows the world to define his narrative. He writes it. He crafts it like an architect. When he walks into a room, he calculates the energy, adjusts his posture, slows his breathing, measures his words. He speaks less, so others project more. He listens not just to reply, but to collect power in silence. The victim rushes to speak, to explain, to defend. The leader watches and withholds. Control is maintained by resisting the urge to be reactive. A leader does not need to dominate with noise. Power is often quiet. It is felt in your presence, not your volume. The more you react, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the more you lose. Victim reacts because he cannot endure discomfort. He must be heard. He must be understood. The leader, however, is comfortable with being misunderstood, silence with mystery, because he knows that control over perception grants influence over outcomes. Most people live in reaction mode. They see the world like a mirror reflecting back judgment, pain, and fear. But the leader sees the world as a screen, and he is the director of the script. He manipulates lighting, timing, and dialogue to convey the story that benefits him most. This manipulation is not cruelty, it is strategy, because life itself is not fair. It rewards those who act powerful, not necessarily those who are powerful. It elevates those who seem certain, even if they are not. The victim cannot grasp this truth, because he still believes life owes him clarity, fairness, or mercy. The leader knows better. He knows life only respects one thing: perception backed by silent, unshakable will. The illusion that destroys men is the belief that control belongs to the powerful, the wealthy, or the fortunate. In truth, control begins not with circumstance, with decision. The masses wait for their environment to change before they act. They believe they must first be given permission, resources, or recognition to lead. This is the mindset of the slave, to wait for the master to grant freedom. But the man who thinks like a leader sees clearly. Control is not granted, it is claimed. Not by pleading or protesting, but by mastering one's mind in the midst of chaos. Control is a choice, and that choice is made every day, regardless of what the world is doing. The victim will always tell himself that he had no choice. He will cite the economy, his parents, his trauma, his past relationships, and his fears as proof that he was trapped. And yet, two men can walk through the same fire. One emerges stronger, the other bitter. One took control of his meaning, the other surrendered to emotion. A leader understands this distinction. He knows that control is not about dominating others first, it is about dominating the self. Until a man commands his own thoughts, emotions, and reactions, he is not free. He is merely a puppet in the hands of circumstances. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They feel rage, jealousy, sadness, and call it honesty. But honesty without control is weakness in disguise. To feel something is not to act upon it. To want something is not to deserve it. The leader feels everything, but shows nothing unless it serves a purpose. He chooses when to speak, when to stay silent, when to strike, when to retreat. Not because he fears, but because he governs himself with precision. The victim is the opposite. He is an open wound. He lashes out, he panics, he sulks. His life is a reflection of what happens to him, not what he decides to become. Control begins where blame ends. So long as a man blames others for where he is, he hands them the reins to his future. The victim blames his boss, his enemies, his family, or even fate. The leader blames no one. He studies his losses like a general studying battlefield maps. He asks not, but what did I fail to anticipate? This is the mind of a tactician. A leader doesn't cry for justice. He finds the angle, adjusts the strategy, and returns stronger. The victim hopes the world becomes fair. The leader makes himself fit to rule in an unfair world. The more responsibility a man takes for everything in his life, even things not of his making, the more powerful he becomes. This is a paradox too heavy for most to carry. But to the leader, it is the foundation of control. He assumes full responsibility, not because he is guilty, but because he is strategic. If he claims it, he can change it. If he owns it, he can transform it. This is why leaders rise while others drown. They do not argue with reality. They absorb it, bend it, and turn it into a tool. The victim fights reality, and in doing so, loses all influence over it. The man who thinks like a leader does not need ideal conditions to act. He creates the conditions through movement. If the room is cold, he sets it on fire with his presence. If the people are silent, he speaks first, not for validation, but to set the tone. He does not wait to be told what to do. He calculates, then moves. Even if his resources are scarce, even if his allies are few, even if his past is soaked in failure, he still chooses control. Because control is not a matter of having, it is a matter of choosing. When a man says, "I can't," he is really saying, "I won't." He cloaks his cowardice in the language of powerlessness. But every refusal to act, every excuse, every delay is a quiet vote for slavery. The leader strips this language from his mouth. He replaces it with silence, with action, a subtle refusal to ever be pitied. Victims seek comfort, reassurance, and sympathy. Leaders seek clarity, leverage, and direction. Control is found not in what happens next, but in how you prepare for what happens next. And the man, who is always ready to adapt, is never truly defeated. There will always be people who have more than you. more strength, more influence, more resources. But this is irrelevant to the man who understands control, because power is not always about possession. It is about positioning. A man with less can outmaneuver the man with more if he refuses to panic, and this refusal is a choice. Most people do not fail because they are under-equipped. They fail because they give up their power the moment pressure is applied. The leader, however, becomes more dangerous under pressure. Not because he is inhuman, but because he is disciplined. Control is not merely external. It is internal architecture. It is the ability to say no when pleasure calls, to remain still when provoked, to think 5 steps ahead while others are hypnotized by the present. It is the mastery of timing, of tone, of tension. Victims are loud and uncontrolled. They break easily, complain quickly, and sabotage silently. But the leader remains deliberate. His movements are few, but they are decisive. His words are sparse, but they carry weight. He is not reactive, because he has already rehearsed the worst and prepared for it in silence. And so, while others tremble before chaos, he remains still, not because the storm isn't real, but because his control is. The greatest threat to power is not your enemy. It is your own uncontrolled emotion. Emotion, when ungoverned, is the quickest path to destruction. It clouds judgment, distorts reality, and invites weakness to masquerade as truth. The world does not bend to those who feel deeply. It bends to those who think clearly. Leaders understand this. Victims do not. The victim allows emotion to guide his decisions, and for this reason, his life becomes a chaotic reaction to every insult, rejection, and failure. The leader, by contrast, uses emotion as a signal, not a steering wheel. He calculates through discomfort, manipulates through calm, and strikes with timing, not with rage. A man driven by emotion will always be the servant of the one who is driven by strategy. This is why leaders do not compete for emotional validation. They do not enter battles to feel seen or understood. They enter battles to win, or they don't enter at all. Emotion asks, how do I feel about this? Strategy asks, what outcome does this produce? The victim seeks to be right. The leader seeks to be effective. That difference determines who ascends and who is discarded. The emotional man responds to offense with outrage. He argues, defends, justifies, and screams for recognition. He believes his reaction makes him strong, but it only exposes his wounds. The strategic man listens to the insult, weighs its source, and responds only if the return on retaliation is greater than the cost. He knows some battles are bait, designed to reveal his weakness, so he waits. He lets fools talk. He lets enemies show their weapons. And when he moves like a shadow, silent, precise, and impossible to read. Most people crave fairness and expect it from a world that has never promised it. They say they want justice. What they really want is an emotional resolution to their suffering. Leaders do not waste energy on emotional justice. They seek strategic dominance. They do not cry about what should have happened. They weaponize what did. A betrayal is not a tragedy to a leader. It is information. It is a new piece of data that reveals who can be trusted and who must be used, avoided, or destroyed. Emotion sees betrayal and asks, why me? Strategy sees betrayal and says, good. I've learned. The victim overplays his hand because he is led by impulses. He speaks too soon, shows too much, falls too quickly, forgives too easily, and breaks too loudly. He mistakes volatility for passion and sensitivity for strength, but these qualities do not build empires. They burn them down. The leader understands that the world watches silently, always evaluating who is in control. Every emotional outburst is a leak in your armor. Every uncontrolled display of joy, pain, jealousy, or insecurity tells the enemy how to defeat you. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you become, the more easily you are conquered. Control over emotion is not about repression. It is about redirection. The leader feels everything, but reveals nothing that does not serve the plan. He may feel anger, but channels it into silence that unnerves. He may feel sorrow, but wears a mask of indifference to keep enemies uncertain. He may feel desire, but conceals it until the environment bends in his favor. This is not deception for deception's sake. It is discipline. It is the deliberate choice to value results over relief and outcomes over catharsis. The victim assumes that honesty means displaying every thought and emotion in the moment it arises. But honesty without wisdom is a weapon turned inward. The strategic man speaks with intent, not impulse. He reveals only what strengthens his position. And when silence is more useful than speaking, he chooses silence. A man who cannot hold his tongue in pressure cannot hold power in adversity. He will sell his strength for the comfort of being heard. The leader sells silence for leverage. He lets others feel superior, while he carves a path in the shadows. Emotion seduces the mind with urgency. It whispers that if you do not act now, you are weak. But urgency is a trap. Reaction is a trap. Leaders move when the field is ready, not when their ego is provoked. They are cold when others are heated. They are still when others shake. This is why they are feared, not because they are loud, but because they are unreadable. You cannot outplay a man who does not need to prove anything. He doesn't chase revenge. He waits. He doesn't demand respect. He creates outcomes that leave no room for disrespect to survive. In every negotiation, in every relationship, in every decision, emotion wants to be the loudest voice. It wants to dictate tone, pace, and outcome. But the leader knows better. Emotion can be a useful disguise, but never a master. It can lure, distract, or entertain, but it cannot decide. The man who leads from emotion builds on sand. The man who leads from strategy builds on rock. The victim wants to feel safe, heard, and justified. The leader wants results. And in pursuit of those results, he will abandon comfort, endure misunderstanding, and remain calm while everything burns around him. Not because he feels nothing, but because strategy demands it. In the arena of power, there are two types of men: the one who is feared and the one who is forgotten. There is no middle ground. If your presence does not provoke caution, then your absence will not provoke memory. The world does not reward the agreeable, the passive, or the kind-hearted. It rewards the man who dares to act when others hesitate. It bows to the one who imposes his will with precision and force. The man who waits to be acknowledged will vanish in silence. The man who seizes control, who moves without apology, who commands without stuttering, he will be remembered, and more importantly, he will be obeyed. Victims are always waiting to be chosen, waiting to be seen, waiting for someone to give them permission to speak, to rise, to lead. Their lives are a slow, painful death by hesitation. They believe that if they are good enough, consistent enough, or humble enough, the world will reward them. But the world does not run on fairness. It runs on dominance. To be passive is to become invisible. To be hesitant is to invite erasure, and to be liked is to be used. A leader understands this. He does not wait to be validated. He acts, knowing that memory is shaped by boldness, not approval. The man who waits becomes a shadow. He is tolerated, not respected. He is invited, but not followed. He is heard, but never feared. Fear is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the unspoken knowledge that your presence shifts the atmosphere, that your silence means calculation, that your next move will alter the outcome. The man who cannot be feared cannot be trusted with power, because he has no edges. He is safe, and safety is the language of the slave. Those who are too safe are easily discarded, easily replaced, and easily manipulated. The leader, however, safe, he is stable but unpredictable. He is calm but never weak. He does not need to roar, because the weight of his silence demands attention. Being feared is not about aggression. It is about decisiveness. The victim hesitates because he wants to be perfect. The leader moves because he understands that timing matters more than certainty. While others are still thinking, he is already shaping. While others are still doubting, he is already building. This speed, this forward movement, sends a signal. He cannot be stalled by indecision, and that makes him dangerous. The fearful man becomes a reference. The bold man becomes a force. And in every group, every hierarchy, there is always a moment where action separates myth from memory. When power is at stake, people do not follow the nicest man. They follow the man who looks like he could destroy them, but chooses not to. They respect the man who shows restraint, not the one who never had the capacity to be ruthless. Kindness is only respected when it comes from someone who could have chosen cruelty. This is why a leader who lacks an element of danger is always overlooked. He may be praised, but he will never be truly respected. His opinions will be tolerated but never enforced. His presence will be welcomed but never required. The leader does not chase visibility. He positions himself where visibility becomes inevitable. He doesn't need to be loud to be heard. He doesn't need to beg to be followed. He creates pressure by his very existence. His standards, his silence, his ability to walk away, these are tools more powerful than speeches or threats. The victim, by contrast, pleads. He overexplains. He justifies. And in doing so, he shows that he has no leverage. The leader shows he is willing to lose everything, which is why he ends up gaining what others never touch. Detachment breeds fear. Neediness breeds contempt. The victim clings. He clings to people, titles, relationships, and routines. He fears change because change demands action. The leader burns the map and walks into the unknown, not because he is reckless, because he trusts his ability to adapt. And that trust creates a magnetic field of power. People gravitate toward the one who does not flinch, toward the one who speaks last, moves first, and acts without hesitation. The one who will either win or walk away, but never beg. To be feared is not to be hated. It is to be respected without needing to speak. It is to walk into a room and make men reconsider their words, to walk away from disrespect without looking back, knowing that silence will haunt more than any confrontation. The victim fights for acknowledgement. The leader ignores those beneath his standard, and in doing so, elevates his position without effort. The need to respond is a weakness. The ability to stay silent and still dominate, this is fear made elegant. The man who chooses to wait chooses to lose. The man who hesitates lets others decide for him. The leader decides, regardless of doubt. He acts, regardless of risk. He becomes feared, not through violence, through certainty. Not through rage, but through calm control. The victim asks, "What if it goes wrong?" The leader says, "Then I will conquer the next attempt." This confidence is what echoes in silence. It is what makes others ask, what is he thinking? And more importantly, what will he do next? And in that uncertainty, power is born. The difference between a leader and a victim is not written in birth luck or status. It is carved in mindset. While the world teaches you to adapt, obey, and seek approval, the leader rewrites the rules and demands respect without ever asking for it. Victims react to life. Leaders shape it. Victims surrender to emotion. Leaders calculate through it. Victims wait for control. Leaders seize it. And while victims disappear trying to be loved, leaders are remembered because they dared to be feared. You are not powerless. You were simply taught to think like a servant in a world that only honors sovereigns. The moment you stop blaming, stop explaining, and stop begging is the moment you reclaim your authority. The battlefield of life doesn't reward the moral. It rewards the masterful. Either you rule your mind, or your mind will be ruled by the chaos around you. Either you become the one who acts, or you become another who waits. This is not about pretending to be strong. It is about building the discipline, detachment, and decisiveness that true strength demands. Control is always available. Strategy is always superior. Power is perception. And respect is won not by pleading, but by positioning yourself as the one who can walk away without a word. In this world, you either command attention, or you disappear in silence. Choose wisely.